My black SUV rolled to a stop at the gates of Fort Brenton, and for a moment, I just sat there, looking at the base I was about to command. My new battlefield. 2 young gate guards stood at attention, sweat sliding down their temples. They couldn't have been older than 22, maybe fresh out of basic. I could already tell they were tense, the kind of rigid you get when you know you're being watched. "Identification, ma'am," one of them said, voice crisp, almost rehearsed. I rolled down my window, keeping my sunglasses on. Of course. I handed him my ID without saying more. The guard frowned as he scanned the badge, then looked to his partner. Ma'am, I don't see your name on the list." "That's so?" I asked, tilting my head just slightly. "Yes, ma'am," the second guard added nervously. "Base protocol. No clearance, no entry." Protocol. Always protocol. It's what keeps order, and sometimes what keeps people blind. I could have pulled rank right then and there. But instead, I leaned an elbow against the window, watching them struggle to balance authority with uncertainty. Then one of them noticed the small tattoo on my wrist, the falcon insignia of my unit. The kind reserved for senior officers who'd been through fire and come out harder. Still, they stood their ground. "Ma'am, please step out of the vehicle." I almost smiled. Good. They weren't just letting anyone through. Before I could say another word, the sound of boots pounding against asphalt broke through the tension. A man in a major's uniform came running from the checkpoint office, his face pale, voice urgent. "Stand down," he barked. "Stand down, both of you." The guards froze as he stopped beside my car, chest heaving. "Colonel Harrison, ma'am, my apologies. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." The 2 guards' faces drained of color. I took off my sunglasses slowly, meeting their wide eyes. "It's fine," I said evenly. "They were doing their job. Don't punish them. I'd rather have soldiers who follow protocol than ones who wave people through blindly." The major nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. Of course. Your quarters are ready. Shall I escort you?" I shook my head. "No need. I know my way." As I drove past the gate, I caught the reflection of the guards in my side mirror, still standing stiff, still stunned. They'd learn soon enough. Titles mean nothing if you can't stand firm. But the moment the base came into full view, the reality hit me. I wasn't just stepping into a command post. I was stepping into a storm. Fort Brenton had been bleeding discipline for months. Whispers of misconduct, missing equipment, training lapses. The previous commander had been removed quietly, the kind of retirement that happens when someone steps too close to the truth. I knew I was being sent here to clean up the mess. Or maybe to fail trying. The first few days, I didn't say much. I walked the grounds, observed, listened. Soldiers would go silent the moment I passed by. A few would whisper, thinking I couldn't hear. I could. I always could. In the evenings, I stayed in my office long after the lights went out across the base. Reading reports, logs, inventories. I could feel the rot hiding between the lines, places where numbers didn't add up, where signatures looked forged. By the end of my first week, I knew one thing for sure. This base was losing its spine. One night, I left a meeting and overheard 2 sergeants outside the mess hall. "She won't last," one said. "They sent her here to take the fall. Just like the last guy." "Careful," the other warned. "Word is she's tougher than she looks." I didn't say a word, just kept walking. Let them talk. Let them doubt. That's how you find out who's watching and who's waiting for you to fail. The first crack in the system showed up 3 days later. A routine inventory check revealed entire crates of medical supplies missing. Signed out, apparently. But by who? No one seemed to know. When I pressed the logistics officer, Captain Mills, he looked like he was about to melt. His answers were too polished, too careful. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. That's when I decided to stop asking and start looking. That night, I called in a few MPs I trusted from my last command. No paperwork. No announcements. Just quiet movement through the shadows of the motor pool and storage facilities. It took us hours, but just past midnight, we found it, a locked garage tucked behind the maintenance bay. Inside, under dusty tarps, were the missing crates. But they weren't alone. Boxes of civilian electronics, tools, bottles of whiskey, even gaming consoles, all hidden in plain sight. It was theft. Organized, deliberate theft. I stared at the stacks in silence. This wasn't a few bad apples. This was a network. Someone was bleeding this base dry, and everyone was pretending not to see it. The next morning, I called a meeting with all senior officers. They filed in, cautious, curious, pretending they didn't know what was coming. Mills sat across from me, hands tight in his lap. I placed the photos from the inspection on the table. "This base," I said quietly, "has been compromised. Supplies have been stolen, documents falsified, and I will find every single person involved." The room went still. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. No one spoke. From now on, I continued. Every transaction, every shipment, every form, it all goes through me. And if anyone here has something to confess, now's the time. No one moved. Mills looked up briefly, then down again. That was all I needed to see. I didn't call him out, not yet. I wanted to see how deep it went. The morning after that meeting, Fort Brenton felt different. Eyes followed me wherever I went. Conversations stopped when I entered a room. And deep down, I could feel it, the fear, the resentment, the tension. It was exactly what I wanted. Fear meant people were awake again. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. By midweek, I had military investigators on base, working quietly under my direction. They didn't wear badges. They didn't ask loud questions. They just watched, listened, and traced. Every missing crate. Every forged signature. And the deeper we dug, the uglier it got. Captain Mills wasn't just sloppy. He was orchestrating a whole operation. A smuggling network. Crates of military equipment and medical supplies had been rerouted, sold off, and replaced with fake paperwork. What stung most wasn't the theft itself. It was how many people knew and said nothing. That's what betrayal looks like in uniform. Not the ones who act, but the ones who stay silent. 3 nights later, I came back to my quarters after midnight, exhausted. When I opened my door, I froze. An envelope lay on the floor. No address. No name. Just one typed line. "Back off, or you won't make it out alive." For a long moment, I just stood there, the paper shaking slightly in my hand. I'd faced mortar fire, insurgent ambushes, and airfield bombings overseas. But this hit different. Because this wasn't war. This was rot from the inside. And I wasn't about to back down. The next morning, I called in Sergeant Daniel Brooks. He'd served with me overseas, one of the few people I trusted with my life. "They're watching you," he said, scanning the note. "Then let them," I replied. "But they're going to slip." We came up with a plan, a trap. I authorized a false shipment. Sensitive supplies. Marked, logged, but fake. We let the information leak where we knew Mills's people would find it. Then we waited. 3 nights later, motion sensors near the depot lit up. 2 soldiers, moving quick and quiet. I gave the order over radio. Do not engage until they load. Brooks and I watched from the shadows as the 2 men pried open the storage bay and started moving the crates. They thought they were invisible. They weren't. When we stepped out, my flashlight cut across their faces. Hands where I can see them. They froze. One dropped the crate. The other tried to bolt. Brooks tackled him to the ground before he got 5 steps. The MPs cuffed them, and within an hour, they cracked. Both pointed straight to Mills. Said he was the one who signed the orders, who gave them access, who promised them protection. By dawn, I had enough to end this. At 0700 sharp, I called an emergency assembly. Officers lined up inside the briefing hall, the air thick with tension. Mills stood among them, pretending to look confused. I walked in, holding a stack of reports. When I dropped them on the table, the sound echoed like a gunshot. "Captain Mills," I said quietly. You've been busy. He blinked. Ma'am, I don't understand. You signed off on falsified documents. You rerouted supplies. You endangered the space. You threatened me. A murmur rippled through the room. Mills turned pale. That's absurd. I raised a hand, cutting him off. Save it. The soldiers you sent confessed. They have logs, dates, even text messages. The MP stepped forward, cuffs ready. Mills, you are under arrest for theft, fraud, and endangering military personnel. He looked around, searching for anyone to back him up. No one moved. Not one soul. When they let him out, silence filled the room. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was relief. Still, I knew Mills wasn't the root, just a branch. So we dug deeper. The investigation spread off base, reaching a civilian contractor responsible for supply logistics. That's where the money trail led: inflated invoices, bribery, and kickbacks. The kind of corruption that doesn't just stain careers, it poisons institutions. When I sent my report up the chain, a general called me personally. His tone was cautious. Colonel Harrison, are you sure you want to pursue this? This contractor has friends in Washington. I answered without hesitation. With all due respect, sir, integrity isn't negotiable. He went silent for a moment, then said, proceed. Weeks later, the contractor was indicted. The news broke in local papers. Corruption scandal exposed at Fort Brenton. The reporters wanted to talk to me, but I declined. This wasn't about publicity. This was about restoring something that should have never been lost. And slowly, the change began. Training picked up again. Soldiers started showing pride. Barracks that had once echoed with frustration now carried laughter. Order returned. Respect returned. Even the 2 young gate guards from my first day came to my office. Nervous, straight-backed, eyes full of pride. Ma'am, one of them said, we just wanted to say, we're proud to serve under you. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Then make me proud. Every day. That night, as I stood on the overlook watching the base lights glow against the desert, I thought about everything we'd faced. The threats, the lies, the silence. And I realized something. Not all battles are fought with bullets. Some are fought with truth. The story of Fort Brenton spread far beyond Texas. They called it a scandal. I called it a reckoning. Because power means nothing without honor. And leadership? It's not about the rank on your shoulder. It's about the choices you make when no one's watching. So if you ever find yourself standing at a gate, holding the line between right and wrong, remember this: integrity is your strongest weapon. I learned that the hard way, but I'd do it again. Every single time.